President.
I recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371.
The Clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar number 168, H.R. 5371, an act making continuing appropriations and extensions for fiscal year 2026 and for other purposes.
Mr. President, 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since Democrats shut down the government. Since Democrats chose to put the demands of far-left activists ahead of serving the American people. And over the last 3 weeks, Mr. President, it's the American people who have borne the consequences of Democrats' shutdown. Thousands of flights have been delayed. Nutrition assistance for millions of needy families is in jeopardy. Military families are turning to food banks in unprecedented numbers. The Democrats are apparently willing to prolong the suffering until their far-left base is satisfied. Mr. President, we've given Democrats here in the Senate numerous opportunities to end the shutdown. We've held now 11 votes on a clean, nonpartisan, continuing resolution to end the shutdown and the pain that comes with it. And they said no every time. We give Democrats an opportunity to consider the bipartisan defense appropriations bill, something that I might add passed the Senate Appropriations Committee 26-3 in an overwhelming bipartisan vote. We gave them an opportunity to consider that here on the floor so we can at least protect our national security and pay our troops. Democrats called it unacceptable and a distraction to pay the troops. We even offered to give them a vote on a health care proposal of their own design if they vote to reopen the government. The answer again was no. Mr. President, I don't know what Democrats are looking for. But if they're looking for Republicans to give in to their hostage-taking, they should think again. I've been very clear since the beginning. On the first day of this shutdown, I said Republicans would be perfectly willing to discuss the issues Democrats are raising, but only after we reopen the government. I said, and I quote, quoting myself here, we're not going to engage in bipartisan discussions while Democrats are holding the federal government hostage to their partisan demands, end quote. And interestingly enough, Mr. President, that's the exact same position the Democrat leader espoused during the 2013 shutdown. He said then, and I quote, "As we said 1,000 times, we are happy to discuss how to fund the government, not with a gun to our head. Open up all the government, and then we can have a fruitful discussion. Then we will discuss things, but as has been said over and over, not with a gun to our heads," end quote. That from the Democrat leader back in 2013. He espoused the same position, interestingly enough, again in 2019, noting, and I quote again, "We cannot ever hold American workers hostage again," end quote. And yet here he is in 2025, holding American workers and government funding hostage. I guess he's forgotten his own words. Or maybe it's just situational. Like a lot of things. They've just adopted a political position, not a real one. Mr. President, Republicans are ready to sit down with Democrats just as soon as they stop holding the government hostage to their partisan demands. As I said, we've actually offered to guarantee them a vote on the Obamacare issue that they are raising. But Democrats continue to dig in. They say we have to agree to their demands before they'll agree to pay our troops, before federal workers can have certainty about putting food on the table and paying their bills, before needy families can be sure that nutrition assistance will be there for them. They say all of this has to wait until after we fix a problem Democrats created. Because let's be clear, Mr. President, the Obamacare cliff that Democrats are so worked up about is the result of their own choices. Democrats wrote Obamacare. They passed Obamacare without a single Republican vote. They created the Obamacare COVID credits without a single Republican vote. And they extended the COVID credits, and then they chose the expiration date without a single Republican vote. That's right, Mr. President. They chose the expiration date. And then they chose not to address that expiration date when they had the majority here in the Senate for the last 4 years. But now they want you to believe that this is somehow a Republican health care crisis? Give me a break. Give me a break. Mr. President, if Democrats truly want a discussion on how to fix the health care mess they created, then they should be voting to reopen the government. And we have a bill right there at the desk that will do just that. It's clean. It's nonpartisan. It has no Republican policies. It has no partisan policy writers. It just extends current funding levels for a few short weeks until we get an opportunity to finish the rest of the appropriations process. And right now, Mr. President, we are just 5 Democrat votes away from passing that here in the Senate and sending it to the White House for President Trump to sign. And if just a handful of Democrats would step forward, we could reopen the government literally in a matter of hours. Today. As I said, Mr. President, from the very beginning of the shutdown, I've made it clear that if Democrats reopen the government, we can immediately sit down and talk about the Obamacare cliff that they've created. Instead, Democrats have wasted now 1, 2, 3 weeks when we could have been having those discussions. And while the American people have suffered, Democrats have been courting praise from the far left. They spent their time looking to be praised for fighting against President Trump when they could have been working with him and with Republicans on solving a problem that they claim to be concerned about. Mr. President, I'll say it again. Republicans are ready to go to work. We've been ready. We're just waiting for Democrats to take yes for an answer. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Mr. President,
Chair recognizes the Democratic leader.
I ask unanimous consent the quorum be dispensed with.
Without objection.
So, Mr. President, I just heard my friend, the Republican leader, Senator Thune, here on the floor. And I heard him say that Democrats are somehow pushing far-left demands here in the Senate. What the heck is he talking about? How is it far left to say we want to lower health care premiums and spare tens of millions of people from financial ruin? Far left? Tell that to an American family whose premiums will go up from $200 a month to $1,400 a month, that fixing that is far left. Tell that to young couples whose parents are about to get kicked out of nursing homes. Tell that to people who live in rural America and see their hospitals closing. That's far left? I'm afraid the Republican leader doesn't know what the American people want and where they are on health care. There's nothing far left or far right or center about wanting lower premiums. It's common sense. It's what the American people overwhelmingly want. 58% of Trump voters, they're not far left, want the ACA tax credits extended, according to the Washington Post. And we cannot and must not delay like Republicans want to do. And beyond that, Leader Thune, I don't know what got into him today, also claimed Republicans are ready to get to work. Really? Tell that to Speaker Johnson and the House Republicans who have been on vacation for nearly a month. Nearly a month. So they want to get to work? Then get Johnson back here. Get the House Republicans back here. If they want to work, the American people see right through that one. Now, it's day 21 of Donald Trump's government shutdown. And while millions of Americans are feeling the squeeze, as I said, the House remains on vacation. And Senate Republicans, They're headed to the White House today, not for negotiations, not to work on any path out of a shutdown or to avert a health care crisis, but for a Rose Garden pep rally with Donald Trump. That's right. Senate Republicans today will join the president to celebrate staying strong and being unified, staying strong against helping Americans who desperately need a fix to the health care crisis, staying strong to the young couple whose parents are getting kicked out of a nursing home, staying strong to people in rural America who are seeing their hospitals close. So as millions of Americans continue to endure the pain of one of the longest shutdowns in American history, Republicans will be celebrating keeping the shutdown going. Republicans may not have time to fix people's health care, but apparently they got plenty of time for a mini pep rally with Donald Trump. In the meantime, the pain for Americans is getting more and more real. More and more states are notifying their residents about the disastrous premium hikes coming their way. And the pressure is building on Republicans, the party in the majority, to do something about this shutdown and about the cost of living. A CNBC poll from Friday found Americans now hold Donald Trump and Republicans responsible for the shutdown by a 53 to 37 margin. 62% of Americans in the same poll disapprove of the president's handling of inflation. 56% disapprove of his handling of tariffs. In other words, what do Americans care about most? Costs, inflation, health care. The very things the Republicans here in the Senate and in the House are refusing to address because they want to shut the government down to avoid discussing the health care issue and having a serious negotiation about it. Our Republican colleagues can dig in all they want, but at the end of the day, the American people know the Republicans are in power. They know Republicans set the agenda. They know the Republicans have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and the burden's on Republicans to work with Democrats in a serious way to reopen the government and fix people's premiums. That's why when I was Majority Leader, we passed 13 CRs precisely through bipartisan consultation. When Democrats were in the majority, we talked with the leadership on the other side. We negotiated. We worked together. We didn't have a shutdown. That's not what's happening here. It's a take-it-or-leave-it partisan bill with no input from Democrats whatsoever. Now, yesterday on the floor, the Republican leader kept using the word galling to describe Democrats' push to find a bipartisan fix to ACA premiums. The Republican leader wants to talk about galling? What's galling is doing nothing, as 20 million Americans face the prospect of paying $1,000 or more a month just to have health insurance. What's galling is saying nothing. What's galling is saying there's nothing to negotiate on health care while, as we speak, people from New York to Georgia and beyond are going online and seeing their premiums are now going from $600 a month to $2,200 a month. What's galling is Republicans being okay with people like Kristi Noem getting a private jet, Donald Trump getting a fancy, expensive new ballroom, Argentina getting a $40 billion bailout, but then saying Americans don't deserve cheaper health care. That is what's galling, I would say to my friend, the Republican leader. That is what's galling. And if my Republican colleagues take issue with any of that, perhaps they should not have spent their whole summer passing the biggest health care cuts in American history. Perhaps the Republican majority should have acted when they had not one, not two, but 3 chances to extend these ACA premium credits. Democrats were ready to work with the other side to get it done, but Republicans continued to act like these ACA premiums are not their problems. They're the problem of the American people, and they're a problem of every legislator, Democrat and Republican, who serves here. The fact that they continue to act like the ACA premiums are not their problem, that, more than anything else, is what's galling to the American people about this debate. Now, Mr. Paul Ingrassia. Yesterday, for the second week in a row, we got a disturbing report about a young Republican operative celebrating Nazi ideology and racist garbage when they think no one's listening. This is what they really think. And they continue to be appointed in positions of power by Donald Trump. Last week, it was thousands of pages of text from prominent members of Young Republicans from New York, Vermont, Arizona, and other states. Well, this week, it's Mr. Paul Ingrassia, a presidential nominee for a very important office, the Office of Special Counsel. And his nomination is scheduled to come up before the Homeland Security Committee this week. Mr. Ingrassia's texts, if authentic, are appalling and point to a really disturbed individual. Let me read a few of the disgusting texts from Ingrassia. Quote, he says, "I do have a Nazi streak in me from time to time, I will admit." Quote, "MLK was the 1960s George Floyd, and his holiday should be ended and tossed into the seventh circle of hell where it belongs. All of Africa," quote, "all of Africa is an S-hole and will always be that way," though he didn't say just S-hole. Imagine a whole continent. Mr. President, these are texts from a presidential nominee. Did they vet them? And if they vet them and they know these things, they shrug their shoulders and say that's okay? These texts are foul and disqualifying, and it's hard to believe there be any process in any White House that would allow such a man through to be nominated. This person does not merit confirmation by this body, and I'm glad a number of our Republican colleagues have said so. That's good and necessary. So to state the most obvious thing in the world, the President should pull the nomination of Mr. Ingrassia today before his big celebratory lunch. He is not going to pass, Ingrassia is not going to pass through this chamber. And I want to be very clear about something else. These texts that have surfaced over the last couple of weeks are not a laughing matter. Some of these Republicans sort of wink at each other and say, "Isn't that funny? Won't that gall people? Isn't that fun?" This is not a laughing matter. These texts are dangerous. And I hope I'm wrong, but we're now seeing what seems to be a pattern of young Republican operatives perfectly at ease with spreading or endorsing explicitly Nazi propaganda and racist views. These people aren't random online trolls or just college kids. They're party operatives, in the case of Mr. Ingrassia, a nominee to serve in the administration in a very important position, handpicked by the President of the United States. These are the people who one day will likely hold senior positions within government or the Republican Party, and here they're calling themselves Nazis and endorsing outright racist views. What, again? Is there any vetting? Do they care? It's incredible, just incredible, that this happens over and over again. It makes you wonder, how many Trump nominees or GOP operatives have said similar things but have not been exposed? It's a chilling thought. But now that this has happened on multiple occasions, it can't be outright dismissed. Again, the President should pull Mr. Ingrassia's nomination immediately. He should be fired from his current job within the administration, and he should never, never hold a position of leadership within the Republican Party or the government again. I yield the floor.
Thousands of federal workers are set to miss another paycheck, and many government programs will start to run out of cash as part of this ongoing government shutdown. Senate Republicans head to the White House today to show solidarity with President Trump. A vote to reopen the government failed for the 11th time yesterday. Democrats continue to push for looming health care cuts to be reversed. CMS Administrator Dr. Mehmet Oz was on the takeout yesterday and says Republicans are trying to stop Medicaid fraud.
I don't think you should close your government if what we're trying to do is protect taxpayers from having money sent without their knowledge to illegal immigrants in other states.
The vast majority of people on Medicaid are already working, and so I think it's a little bit of a distraction from the issue and the billions of dollars of cuts that are made both there as well as food benefits with SNAP and TANF for hardworking Americans who are just trying to get by.
CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small joins us now from Capitol Hill with what we might expect today. Torian, good morning. It's a little like deja vu. We've got 11 votes that have failed. Lawmakers aren't budging. So what are Republicans hoping to gain from their time with President Trump today?
Well, presumably they're looking to get more guidance on how to proceed forward with this stalemate. I mean, the president has been pretty much in lockstep when it comes to messaging with Republican leadership here on the Hill around framing this as a problem caused solely by Democrats. So it's likely we'll see coming out of that meeting new messaging around a pathway forward, potentially endorsing the president's plan to unilaterally fund some of these more critical areas of the government, as we saw with him directing around $80 billion in unobligated research and development Pentagon funds to fund troops. And then we also know concurrently there's a plan or a proposal to fund essential, expected, quote unquote, expected federal workers. But ultimately, though, there's still many more who won't be seeing a paycheck like you mentioned there, Errol, because this government is still shut down.
Yeah, and that means the pain from this shutdown kind of is compounded with each passing day. Democrats have been calling on the president to get involved in these talks. So what are they saying now?
Well, they're expecting him to come to the table. What's curious about this situation, Leader Hakeem Jeffries said that he actually had a conversation with Speaker Mike Johnson over the weekend. No idea of what actually came out of that conversation. He wouldn't necessarily go into the details, but he is hoping that the president would bring them to the table to have this discussion and not just keep this down partisan lines and talking to members of his own party. This is what Jeffries had to say about it yesterday.
Donald Trump definitively needs to get involved. He needs to get off the sidelines, get off the golf course, and actually decide to end the shutdown that he's created. We know that House and Senate Republicans don't do anything without getting permission from their boss.
As you just mentioned at the start of our conversation, it's like deja vu. Democrats and Republicans are separately holding these daily media availabilities, these press conferences to point the finger at the other side. But it's still not looking like actual negotiations, conversations between the parties, substantive conversations are happening that could bring them closer to a resolution, Errol.
All right, Torian, thank you very much.